Hey, good morning, everybody. So trying a little something different where we get the kind of picture in picture here with the document and then my smiling face. Anyway, we're going to look at today quick review of what we did yesterday, talking about slave rebellions and the introduction of John Brown. And then we're going to talk more about some other abolitionists that were not John Brown. Anyway, this is what you had yesterday on Monday, talking about how, were there, is there evidence of slaves fighting back from what they had to go through? Well, the answer is yes. Now, keep in mind, without a way to communicate with one another, without access to weaponry, obviously these were difficult, but there were a couple notable ones. Probably the most famous of them in 1831, Nat Turner's slave rebellion, which goes into detail here. As I think I told you the other day, back in college, almost 20 years ago, I wrote a 10, 11 page paper about Nat Turner. It was very interesting. Incredibly violent and the scale of it is larger than just about any other slave rebellion. But it was an interesting topic for sure. But then going down to the document, the only homework you had for today, a drawing of various stages of Nat Turner's rebellion is shown in the next page. Based upon what you see, do you think the artist of horrid massacre in Virginia was anti-slavery or pro-slavery? Well, I guess I butchered the title there a little bit, didn't I? Speaking of the title, though, just based upon that, I think you could probably see that the artist would be pro-slavery, pardon me, horrid massacre. Do you think everybody in the United States would have seen this as a horrid massacre? Now, obviously, the killing of women and children, but these were slave owners. And if you look at somebody like John Brown, for instance, I don't think he would describe this as a horrid massacre. He'd probably describe this as a glorious rebellion or well deserved or something like that, as opposed to a horrid massacre. And then the drawings themselves might leave a little bit of gray area, but when you look more closely about how Mr. Travis was, I'm literally zooming in here, Mr. Travis was cruelly murdered, as if there's another way, and then talking about how Mr. Barrow bravely defended. So even just the adverbs used there would lead one to think that the artist was pro-slavery and not anti-slavery. All right, but on to what today is. So we're talking about other abolitionists. Did want to throw up this picture again, though. Again, called Tragic Prelude. Prelude is in something that comes before, because even though this image shows the American flag and the Confederate flag used during the American Civil War, John Brown actually died before the Civil War. So in 1859, he was executed, but this is showing bleeding Kansas, and as I said yesterday, you can find it at the Capitol building in Kansas to this day. And you can actually see what John Brown looked like in real life. So here he is with the massive beard, and here he is without the massive beard. Oh, I guess I have to pull up my webcam again, don't I? How do I do that? Let's see. Hey, there I am again. Well, that was a little bit clunky, but I'll get better at it. Anyway, you can see that's what John Brown with beard, and then obviously without beard. He died at the age of 59, so in some of these pictures he looks quite a bit older, but hard living for John Brown. Killing slave owners really puts the mileage on you. Anyway, a little bit of a reading here about Bleeding Kansas, and you can actually see why Kansas was the epicenter of the new slavery discussion, or even site of violence in America. John Brown, born in Connecticut, lived for much of his life in Ohio, but those were anti-slavery states. So if he really wanted to fight violence, he had to go where slavery was, or where slavery was trying to encroach. So you see the Missouri Compromise here, this line that we talked about the last unit, right, which basically sort of said that if you were south of this line, you could have slavery, and if you were north of this line, you could not have slavery. And yes, I understand that it's a little bit odd because Missouri is actually north of this line, but that's sort of like continuing on from here. And you can see Kansas, which is right where my cursor is, that should be non-slavery, but many people from Missouri were trying to come into Kansas and impose slavery into that territory. So anyway, a little bit about Bleeding Kansas, and then it talks about how following Bleeding Kansas, we had um, the savage beating of Senator Sumner by Preston Smith Brooks, the congressman from South Carolina. If you go down a little bit more, rather than give you a reading, Ken Burns, same documentary that we looked at before, has a quick clip of John Brown and what happened at the raid at Harper's Ferry. I'll go over that again on Thursday. And then I did want to talk more about some other abolitionists. So even though John Brown was very bombastic and violent, and the things that he did are certainly not to be forgotten, he was not the only person fighting against slavery in the United States. So other people gave speeches. They started newspapers. They tried to pass legislation. People like even John Quincy Adams, the former president, tried to do that unsuccessfully, obviously. So these are not all the other abolitionists in the country. The Grimke sisters and David Walker are all missing from here. But I tried to give you at least a sample of some men, women, some white, some black who were fighting against slavery in the 1830s and 1840s and 1850s, right up until slavery ended with the 13th Amendment. So anyway, so just a little half paragraph on William Lloyd Garrison, Frederick Douglass, et cetera, et cetera. So it is a little bit more reading than we're used to, but I am going to give you until Thursday to get it done. So today's Tuesday, so you have 2 days to complete this. And when I say this, I mean one of those crossword puzzles, which I'll show you in a second. And then what else? Thursday, there will also be a quiz. All right, so that'll cover lessons 1 through 5, talking about slavery and the abolition movement. And then also a note that last Friday, I posted the reassessment options for both the myth making and the foreign affairs test. I think only 2, maybe 3 people have reached out to me about their interest in doing that. Well, the clock's ticking on that. So it's posted, like I said, it was posted last Friday on Google Classroom. So if you're interested in reassessing either of those, please let me know. I know the third quarter has been crazy and very different from what we're used to, but it is going to end just about in a week. So I'm gonna start putting my comments in. So obviously a reassessment will go a long way towards helping some of you improve your learning indicators. And the last thing, I did want to show you the crossword puzzle. Where'd it go? There. Um, so anyway, that is that. All right. I will check in with you guys on Thursday. It looks like it's going to be kind of a chilly day, but at least the sun is out. So I hope you guys have a good one. Take care.